Hello, Sarah Sabin, transformational leadership and business coach here in the Leading in the Modern Way video interview series. And I am thrilled today to be interviewing Ran Mullins, who is CEO of Relequint. Ran, thank you for agreeing to be on the show today. And would you like to introduce yourself in a few words?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Ran Mullins, I am currently the CEO of Relequint, which is a B2B growth agency, and we focus primarily on helping with revenue operations. Started out as an inbound marketing company, but over the past few years, what we've been seeing is a lot of the content marketing hasn't been working as well. So we have moved on to revenue operations and helping with marketing, sales, and service. So yeah, and my career really, I started with my first agency was a full service agency for 12 years. I sold that in 2009. Worked on my own for a bit, then became co-founder of an inbound marketing agency and left that partnership in order to start Relequint in 2015. A couple of tech companies on the side, but we don't need to go into that.
Well, we are talking to a serial entrepreneur today, which always brings a added dimension to these conversations. So let's get into it. I'd love to hear more about what you consider to be the most significant challenges of entrepreneurship at the beginning of a company versus the later stages of a company.
Well, I think, the beginning is really all about creation, and you're creating something out of nothing in most cases, and you're having to build something. Whereas once you get all of your processes in place, you get your people, you get that team together, they know what they're doing, you have the processes there, you get your tech stack put in place, and then it's really a lot about managing that and growing it. So it's a little different than the building part where things don't exist. You don't have enough people to do all of the things. And so multiple people wear multiple hats, and managing through that itself. I love the challenge of it because lots of creative problem solving, but it's definitely a difficult time period.
Yeah, and what's really interesting that's come out of these conversations is the topic of boredom. So a lot of entrepreneurs love that beginning building stage, and then when things start to stabilize, they begin to get a bit of itchy feet and a bit bored.
I think it somewhat depends on the company. There are companies whose business model will continue to provide new and different challenges, which require that same kind of energy from an entrepreneur. And then there are others that they kind of reach their saturation point, and you know exactly who your targets are. You have those lists very clearly defined. The services themselves are going to continue to work for some time. And if you put the right team together, then the entrepreneur is left with less to do other than to go out and evangelize that business. And a lot of entrepreneurs do get bored with that.
What about you personally? What's your favorite stage?
Well, I think growth in particular is something that is going to be incomplete for a long time. What we're seeing, even with AI and how it's disrupting content marketing and everything from demand gen to lead gen, and really pipeline, and kind of that melding of marketing and sales and service, and they never should be siloed and disconnected, but that's what's happened over the years. And so now I think the tech is finally reaching a place where they become very integrated, and your teams are revenue teams rather than being marketing or sales or customer success teams.
So you're seeing a convergence as a result of AI.
Well, and because of that, it's keeping me interested because it keeps changing, and it's changing rapidly. So for me, those are really fun challenges to chase.
Awesome. So tell me more about what are your plans for the coming year, and how do you envision Relequint growing and evolving in the future?
Yeah, so we really had our best year last year. And then this year, the start has been very rocky with the economy, I think, with a lot of consolidation. A number of our clients have been purchased and changing of the guard. But at the same time, over the last 18 months, we've been pivoting to a revenue operations model. So RevOps for us is getting deep into sales and customer success in addition to the marketing that we have been involved in for so long with our retainer clients. So we're actually doing a lot more B2B rebranding right now, which is interesting. And I think it's clients switching from retainers to project work and kind of realizing where they're at, bringing a number of services in-house as well. I think with AI, they want to give it a shot and see if they can do it.
Okay, so you would work in a project basis to allow a client to perhaps understand how they could do that in-house?
Yeah, and that's, I'm sorry, that's my language for Relequint, because we have, since we started, not been a project house. We have really been fully focused on growth retainers and providing sales accepted and sales qualified leads each month. That's really our model. And producing the content, also doing all the marketing automation, the lead nurturing, and then following through to sales to make sure that the return on investment is there. So that's been our model traditionally. We're finding a number of clients pulling back on that this year and trying again to do a lot of what we have done for them themselves with their own teams. And it's kind of sad because they're actually doing layoffs as well. And so then one person inside of that team gets a lot put on them, and it's pretty stressful. But I think with the uncertainty, though, of what's going on for the clients as well as for us, moving to revenue operations and getting a more automated buyer journey is very, very important right now. So we've been very focused on buyer enablement. How do we reduce friction for those buyers? Also educating clients that not everyone is a customer, but they might be a buyer. So while they aren't a customer yet, don't treat them like a customer, treat them like a buyer. And there's a difference to that. It's very subtle, but with your title here about the modern piece, Gartner talks a lot about what modern looks like. And I think, in most of their descriptions, it's around technology, but it's also around the org chart and how you're organizing your business for revenue.
And what's really interesting, if I was to summarize at a very general level what you're saying, it's about being agile and pivoting and foreseeing what's coming down the road, which is far more important now for various reasons, including technology, than it was 10 or 15 years ago.
It really is. I think everyone's go-to-market plans are somewhat upended right now. You cannot do the same thing in July of 2023 that you did in July of 2022.
Yes, absolutely.
Your results are not going to be there. They're not.
Yes, agility is very much a factor in modern leadership. And on that point, I'd love to know more about what you define as a strong leader and how you see strong leadership impacting how you lead your company.
I think it begins with vision, having a clear vision and understanding the objectives. With any of the marketing, it always goes back to the persona and who is that buyer. And from a business to business perspective, you have to remember that it's not one person, it's a decision team. And what that lead buyer or decision lead is doing is they're really identifying their problem. How can you help them with that? What are your conversion gaps of them understanding their problem? Can you do that? And then they're looking at solution exploration. So there are really only 4 stages for them, although for us, we as the marketers might define a much longer journey because we want to track things along the way. But for them, it's 4 stages. It's identifying the problem, it's solution exploration. It's really looking at the potential suppliers and their requirements, the requirements that you have, and then ultimately making a decision on who to partner with. So, yeah, and a lot of times they have to do validation and consensus. So that's why you might get that long gap on a decision, because they've gone back to their team and the requirements may have changed. And then they have to go back and redefine their problem. And you're waiting on the other side, not hearing anything from them, but you don't know why.
And what kind of leader would you say you are when you interact with your own team or teams?
I like to think that I'm a very empathetic and supporting leader, in that I like to give people the opportunity to really show me what they can do. And I try not to smother them. I do not stand behind them, look over their shoulder. We have very clear set objectives. We have leadership team. And we talk through how we're managing together as a group, not it all coming down from me.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think with empathetic leadership, it can mean that, there is a perception that things aren't clear, or that there aren't expectations or goals or objectives, and that's not the case. It's the case of, if you have a strong vision, you have goals and objectives, those are broken down at a team level and individual level, it's then coaching the potential out of the people in your team to be able to go and fulfill on that, and to also hold them accountable to it.
That is an excellent point. So I think starting with that vision and the OKRs, that really is key. If all of that is defined clearly, but in our growth catalyst framework, what we've defined, we require that of our clients as well. So it's like, it really is in our culture to clearly define, okay, who are we talking to? What is the main objective that we're trying to solve with this campaign, or this account? And then what goals are realistic that we can hope to achieve? And we apply that to each role within the company, as well as then to the client.
And how do you cultivate a positive company culture?
So I can be too intense at times, and I do require others on my team to help me to remember to create the camaraderie that's needed. I always enjoy it, when we do group Zooms, because we're very remote, or when we come together. I always enjoy all of that interaction. We get in on the personal level and everything, but and it creates better bonding for sure. But I'm always so focused on what do we have to do in order to improve our company, the client's companies, etc.
And that's interesting, because that's the point of a team, that you have your strengths and your zone of genius, and that might be getting things done, it might be the vision part, and therefore you have other people on the team that complement you and can fill in on the things that perhaps you don't think of so much, or aren't in your zone of genius.
Yeah, not only fill in, but are better at those things than me.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, not just the gaps, but actually the things that I might be good at, they're great at. So.
And how have you invested in yourself as a leader? So what steps do you take to continue learning and growing as you go along your journey?
Well, to your earlier point of accountability, we have worked with Traction with the EOS group, and making sure that we have someone else outside to be accountable for. And if we're not meeting the goals, that we are aware that we're not. And yeah, I don't like chaos So I try and systematize and create buckets for things. But yeah, having that outside accountability is helpful.
Okay, and in terms of the things that you do for yourself, are there things that you tend to do on a day-to-day basis to continue learning?
I mean, lots of online sources. I have information obviously coming at me, but I've subscribed to things that there are leaders that I really admire and are sharing their own leadership challenges and solutions. I consider that one of the biggest, because then I can reach out to them as well. And, I've got this problem. Looks like you've already encountered it. Groups as well, groups of more intimate size. And then I have a very healthy group, a network of entrepreneurs that I have been lucky enough to call my friends for many years. So,
and I think that's key, that support network, because entrepreneurship can be a lonely journey, and it's good to have that support and mentorship as you're going along, and people that understand exactly where you're coming from.
right, and you never have it all covered. You're always going to be learning. So find the people that you respect, that have models that you respect, and they've achieved successes, or at least staying power, and they've had to overcome challenges, right?
And final question, Ran, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self if you could go back in time?
Strangely enough, I would tell my 20-year-old self to go work in corporate for at least 3 years.
Interesting. Okay, why?
Because I never did. I have a very different background. I started out as a painter. These are paintings.
I went to art school about all those paintings behind you. Yeah. Now I know.
But I went to art school, and so coming out of there, my first company was actually, I started with web design and then built it into a full service advertising agency. But I did what I knew how to do, and I had created my first website for my paintings, actually. So, but that 20-year-old self, I was very interested in the creation part, but I wasn't sure where the income would come from. I moved to New York. I did illustration work for the New York Times Book Review. Yeah, it was an interesting journey, but I think if I had spent the time in corporate, it could have saved me probably at least 5 or more years of learning through trial and error on my own company.
Thank you for this chat today, Ran. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and I hope, my listeners, that you have learned something today that you're going to take away from this conversation. If you would like to be involved in the Leading in the Modern Way interview series, then please do reach out to me. And thank you, and bye for now.